emotional life.
Let me tell you something.
You're listening to QSJ, Digging Up the Underground.
Let's get back to the mix.
DJ.
I lay before you all I have to offer, King of my heart. I need to know you, and I need to love you more, King of my heart. And you're king, and you're king, and you're king, and you're king. So I'm queen when you're king in my heart. And it's love, and it's love that I lay at your feet, King of my heart. Oh, la la la, la 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 la. La 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 There is no end, there was no beginning to this love, King of my heart.
Welcome to QSJ Mad La, Digging Up the Underground, where we delve into the transformation of stories and insights. Today we are honored to host Barbara J. Hunt, a distinguished forgiveness specialist, transformational coach, and acclaimed author. Barbara's seminal work, this is what happens when I try to use big words. Forgiveness Made Easy, the revolutionary guide to moving beyond your past and truly letting go, has empowered countless individuals to embrace forgiveness as a path to emotional freedom and inner peace. With over 3 decades of experience in personal and spiritual development, Barbara has led numerous workshops and retreats, guiding participants through the profound journey of letting go and healing. Beyond her writings and contributions, Barbara is also a talented musician, where you just heard King of My Heart, which is available on all streaming platforms, using her artistry to inspire and connect. Beyond her written contributions, Barbara is also her insights have been featured on platforms like other podcasts like The Kid and Friends, where she discusses the transformative power of forgiveness. Thank you, Barbara, for joining us here on QSJ Radio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Definitely want to talk about a lot of things. You seem to have this talent that humans do not possess, okay? And it is to have this forgiveness power. We're living in a day right now where people are really just not letting go of things. You've done something to me. I can't forgive you. You're not part of my circle. It is just this language, and it is promoted like crazy. Can you take us back real quick on the moment or experience that first led you to explore this concept of forgiveness so deeply?
Well, it was a really, really slow burn. I did a lot of personal spiritual development, a lot of reading in my early 20s, even before that. And then I did some personal development trainings and trained to become a mentor in a particular program called the More to Life organization. And they had a really good teaching on forgiveness. And kind of from then on, I thought, well, I want to take that on as a practice. So I saw it a bit like, you do like yoga or something, or you take the bins out, I want to do something about my emotional life. I want to do the work in my heart. And so I've had it for myself personally as a practice for decades. And so if I feel like there's somebody in my life who's really annoying me, or I feel like I'm carrying a resentment, I write them down on my list, and then when I take time, I'll do some work. I'll do the process that I've created, basically, on the individuals who I feel like are stuck in my heart, and I don't want them in there, or I want to heal the dynamic between us. And so it's been a personal journey. But then, as I started coaching other people and mentoring other people about forgiveness, I realized how challenging it is. There were so many parts to it that you could get stuck here, you could get stuck here, you could there. And so when I decided I was going to write my book, I was outlining the 5 biggest obstacles to forgiveness. But like you were saying, culturally, it's so not on the table anymore. Not. So it's even before you get to forgiveness. You've got the kind of, why should I forgive? And even noticing maybe that would be something that needs to happen. Like we don't think that's the thing that I need to do. We think the other person is wrong and therefore they need to change.
If you're just tuning in with us, we're talking with Barbara J. Hahn and talking through the journeys and some work. The work part, there had to be this point where, after adjusting for you, that you realized that you wanted to teach and to guide others. I don't know. I don't think I have the patience. So if I don't have the patience, I don't know if I could teach. I told my, we talked behind the scenes of how many kids I have. I said, if I was your coach, you probably wouldn't be playing, right? But when was this turning point that you realized you wanted to teach?
I think, it was, again, it was really early on. It was just I think I just sort of in my early 30s. So just after I'd had my first son, I taught my first self-esteem course. So I was wanting to share what I was learning and to share the happy news about what's possible, because we don't get any training about our mental and emotional well-being. That's that, and even that was even more so 30 years ago, where it was embarrassing to admit that you might need psychotherapeutic help. If you were going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, it was because you were ill. There was a bit of a stigma. Yeah. Whereas now we're more aware of mental health, but we call it mental health, and we really mean emotional health. We really mean our feelings. Definitely. And the dynamics in our relationships. And I think one of the things I enjoy doing is trying to explain concepts that aren't real. And I think songwriting is a similar thing. What you're trying to transmit is something, it's like an essence of something. And you're using music and sound and all the different elements of a song. And I was trying to do the same thing, trying to convey about the essence of forgiveness, because sometimes we don't even know what it means. If you ask people what does forgiveness means, you'll get a load of different answers. Yeah, definitely. So if you're trying to do something and you don't even know what it is, it's like make a cake and you don't even know, what's that? Does it have greens in it, or does it have tomatoes in it? It's like you need to know what ingredients go in it. Yeah. And that was really what I was interested in sharing. And then also I did do, I was doing some song promotion. And I was writing these little pieces as if angels were talking to humanity. What would they say? How would they coach us? Yeah. This really high up perspective. And 5 of them ended up being about forgiveness. And I thought, no, I've got to write a book about this. It's because it's
I wanted to bring that up because the inspiration for Forgiveness Made Easy. How do you feel that I know you're getting into what inspired you to write it, but after that, what do you feel also sets it apart from other self-help literature? Because there is a lot out there.
Yeah, great question. Well, one is I made a really conscious decision to not make it spiritual, as in I didn't want to have it based in a particular faith. I wanted it to be multi-faith. And I've had feedback from all kinds of different people from different religions, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, that it's really helpful. Even a sheikh said to me, or, gave me a really lovely review on Amazon just saying it really is the most helpful book on forgiveness that I've ever found. And I was trying to make it accessible. I was trying to make it practical. And I was trying to make it something that, because really what I'm trying to do, my vision, if you like, is to make forgiveness, make it culturally acceptable as something that we do for our mental health. So just like we, take care, there's lots of emphasis now, you must exercise, moving is good for your body, good sleep, all these different things that we know help towards our mental and emotional well-being and our physical well-being, that forgiveness would be one of those pieces. That we would just, who have you done your forgiveness work on this week then, Dave? It would just be normal. We would just be doing it in our everyday world. If at work there's a conflict between a boss or co-workers or whatever, you just do your work. You work through that dynamic. You look at where you're stuck, and then that can change how you then have the next conversation with the person.
That brings me to this. You actually brought this into like a step, like it's almost like forgiveness for dummies. But anyways, if you could walk us through this 7-step forgiveness process and how it came to be, and I'm not gonna lie, you probably need to teach me this stuff. I'm probably gonna have to read the book again. But 7-step forgiveness, what's that process?
Yeah, well, it's a conglomeration of several different modalities. So I was looking at the things that I was taught through the More to Life program. They were good, but they didn't go all the way. I learned about the journey process, which is through Brandon Bayes. Good, but missed out some of the things that the More to Life program did. Then I was also looking at the Jungian active imagination process. So I've synthesized a few things together to make this process. But the funny thing is like the process kind of comes at the end of the preparation. And so really it's not the 7 steps is like almost like a ritual, like a ceremony of forgiveness. That's the work that you do.
Okay.
But the getting there, that's sort of almost like getting over the obstacles first, and then you get to the point where you can then do the forgiveness made easy process, which is what my book does. So it outlines each of the 5 biggest obstacles. It tells you what they are, how to overcome them, and then at the end of the book, it has the whole of the process, the 7 steps of the actual forgiveness made easy process. But there are things that I can sort of describe, if you're interested, about the things that I think are really important that you need to do. If you want to forgive somebody, there are a few things that need to happen. So I can talk about those if you want.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Shout out to everybody listening. Thank you so much for tuning in with us here. We're talking with Barbara J. Hunt, and the start of this forgiveness coach, then author, teacher. There's got to be a lot of common things that come around. And I think one of them could probably be like this misconception. You talked about it earlier, of what people have about what forgiveness is. What do you find yourself correcting often when it comes to that?
Yeah, I use a very particular definition, which I learned from K. Bradford Brown, all those years ago. And he says that forgiveness is the absolute refusal to hold ill will, so that's a grudge, a gripe, grievance, against someone for what they did or didn't do. So I'll say it again because it's quite long. Forgiveness is the absolute refusal to hold ill will against someone for what they did or didn't do. And I often describe it like this, where you've got like a whole kind of like, you collect up all your grievances, and somebody does that thing and then they do the other thing. And so you've got this whole...
You got to throw a few more in there for me.
Exactly. A whole kind of group of or a litany of disasters, things that people did, all the ways in which they were wrong. And so the absolute refusal is this: you put it down. And that, it looks really simple, doesn't it? But you're like, but they were wrong. But that's actually what it means. It means refusing to hold on to it. And if I keep my hands open, you can't make me resent you. You can do things that I might not like or that I don't agree with. And one of the biggest obstacles, the biggest mistakes that people make about forgiveness is thinking that this is the same as letting people off the hook, or saying, oh, that's okay, I don't mind, hit me again. Or, it's okay, I'm not going to litigate. Of course you litigate. There are some things that are illegal. There are some things that are morally deplorable. Yeah. And you're not saying they're not morally deplorable. I'm saying I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to hold ill will against you because of those things. And it's such a strange thing to be doing, because basically you're keeping your heart open, but you're not then doing anything about it. And that means that maybe you feel more grief. And actually, I sometimes talk about forgiveness and grief being like sisters, like siblings, that they often come together, that you don't want to forgive because you might grieve, or you don't want to grieve because you can't grieve because you can't forgive.
Wow. They're making me, it's like 15 years of my life just thinking. I probably stressed out a little bit too much about things that I can't control. Big shout out to everybody listening. I'm going to take one break real quick. I want to introduce how music came into this, and I want to give it another taste of, these songwritings are super incredible. If you guys got Spotify, Barbara J. Hunt on Spotify, the Apple Music, all that stuff, and definitely on the website, and I'll give you guys all those information. But the main website, barbarajhunt.com. Go ahead and check that out. This one right here is called Wake Up as One. When we come back, I just want to touch base on what was the writings behind this, and of course, we'll start into our music journey. I want to get to there. Here is Wake Up as One, Barbara J. Hunt on QSJ Radio.
I hear the voice deep in my heart, even though wild storms are raging and tear us apart, and the whole world's on fire. I'm watching it burn, but it feels like I'm drowning. When we gonna wake up as one? When we gonna wake up as one? It's okay to feel crazy, it's human to cry, to feel so confused and not understand why. How do we wake up from us versus them to all of us, all of us? How we gonna wake up as one? How we gonna wake up as one? Get everyone around the table, bringing our gifts to the feast, serving the whole of creation.
Wake Up as One. And I can only imagine, when you throw out music out there, or even throw in stories or whatever concepts, you expect people to throw in what they see. Can't really get mad, right? Like, can't get mad. Like, oh, you thought that was that. But it's really, I feel it's almost politically driven. I feel like it's something that can relate to maybe like family issues, things like that, all that. But I also believe that when us humans are trying to, feel together, which is a very, very hard word sometimes. The one is all we use. This is a really weird time where it feels forward and backwards all at the same time. And what direction do we have? So when I hear the song and I'm with you and I'm singing it in the shower, we're beautiful song, by the way. And I just, it's and of course this is the music that ever since like wartime, like really bad wartime, it doesn't get played. These are the things people don't want. They don't want the kumbaya. And, I know that's got to be hard to know that even though you're throwing music out there, like there's a possibility that this is not going to get what it needs. But your music has touched so many. So it doesn't need to get on those big guys, because we're trying to get to those small hearts, right? But anyways, what is that's just my view of the song. What was your writing and why that had to come out?
Yeah, well, I love that you said that it's political, because it is. Because if you look at the state of humanity now, it's like we really need a massive shift as a humanity to decide what is important and what is not important, and what direction are we going to go. And it just looks like we're just tearing ourselves and each other apart, and there's wars everywhere, and no one's saying, how do we make the world work for everyone? And that's what the leaders should be saying. We should be saying, we've got some big crises coming up for us as a humanity, and how do we address those? How do we do it better? How do we make the world work for everyone? And like you said, it isn't going to be the most popular. However, every human being has got a heart, and a bit like water kind of finds its way into the gaps. I feel like it's that kind of message, that there's a part of us that knows we're not doing well. We're sending people up into space when there are people who do not have enough food. And one of my friends has a charity, and she went to Burundi to see these women, to see what their needs were, and they don't even have underwear or shoes. And so for me, it's like it's unacceptable for us to see the world the way it is, with so much and so little, and not go, this is wrong, let's do something about it. And so the song totally came out of my heart. And I think maybe the connection really between the forgiveness work and my songwriting is it's still work of the heart. It's all about the heart.
It's the writing has to come easy. Okay. And it comes easy because, of course, you're a writer, right? And then you're teaching, and then you're definitely catching or staying within the times. And I say this because we talked about how just a few decades ago, going to see a therapist, going to see somebody was considered like you had a problem. And now it is basically like you need to go to help with your issue versus making it look like a problem, right? So this is, wash away the stigma. But now we dive into the music part. The music part is, it's almost like folk stories for your mind, almost. Like, how does your music complement your work in personal development? And I'm just imagining like sitting in your office or having a Zoom call with you or whatever, how you do your things, and it's playing in the background. Like, you know, I could. But how does your music complement your work in personal development? And what made you want to do it?
Yeah, I don't play it in the background just in case anyone wants.
The instrumental, at least. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I've made music all my life. One of my earliest memories is singing on the swing when I was a tiny little girl, and we've always had music in my family, and that's just been part of my life. And I've been writing songs since I was 15, so that's been another lifelong journey. As a failed musician, technically, but I've never stopped writing. Well, I've never been successful, as in, you know, commercially successful, but I haven't stopped. So that makes me successful because I haven't stopped. But I feel just as engaged. I just love the process of creativity in all its forms. I mean, the next single that I'm releasing in May will have a stop motion animation as the video, which I've been making, which has been really fun. So the music is related to my worldview, if you like. And although in fact, funnily enough, on this new album of songs, there is a song called Forgive Me, which I wrote before I ever wrote the book. And then there's also one called Spider, which is also out on release now, the second single we released. And that I wrote as a reflection of some of the clients that I've been working with. There's one in particular, I used to work on a retreat, and one client in particular had such a distressing story that I felt inspired and evoked to write this song about how really she had overcome such a deprived upbringing to become this incredible musician herself. So there really is a sort of therapeutic. I feel like music's medicine sometimes. I don't know if you ever have that where there's a song and you just want to play it over and over because it does something, and it's like almost like a homeopathic remedy. It's doing something and you can't express it. And I find sometimes that I write the songs that I write because I don't find them out there. I don't find the depth that I want. I want something that's kind of really meaningful or really kind of from the heart. And, you know, of course, there's millions of really brilliant musicians, but sometimes it's the accuracy of the emotional reflection that I want. And so I write out of that. I always trying to be, it sounds weird.
No, it doesn't, because it's almost as if the music allows you to express or process the emotions in ways that the writing and coaching cannot.
Yeah.
Because you cannot put your own self into a situation where you're expressing, you know, you can't do it. Like, imagine having a conversation and somebody goes, well, I like a strawberry ice cream. And it's just like, well, you just threw away that whole conversation because we wasn't talking about you at all. And I think that the music does it. And what's crazy is that you're throwing it out there as not only as your issue, but everyone's. And, you know, there's so much selfish music out there because and I'll explain this to those who are listening, because I know some artists do this, where you have to know the artist to know what they're talking about. And sometimes that is where artists fail to understand that you cannot make timeless music, because timeless music is not about the specific artist. It's about something bigger than them. And a lot of artists, like, you have to follow them to know what they're talking about. This to know, you know, they'll throw a subliminal here, especially like in hip hop. I've seen it a lot going on in country lately, but it's like, it's very, very selfish, and no one knows what you're talking about, but hey, the beat is good, right? But when you have music, like, you're expressing you, but you're also writing it in a way that is just, it's not about you. I'm not the only person that went there. Especially the song that you're talking about now, where it's, you know, how the strength that someone else shows inspires you.
Yeah.
You know? And that's amazing stuff right there. Shout out to everybody listening. If you guys want more information on those songs, Spotify, Apple Music, I believe on YouTube as well. For those who are broke, okay, go stream it. It's free. Okay. Big shout out to everybody listening. All right, so we're talking music. We're talking about forgiveness. I don't want to go into the future yet. I want to talk about something because it's getting hard for me right now. I'm going to try hard, really, really hard, because I talk a lot. I'm going to try really hard to try to get this. We'll call that a free consultation. Okay. I expressed earlier my career when I first got out of high school. And I did that for 21 and a half years. I lived away. Me and my first wife, we didn't make it. We were like high school sweethearts, but I don't think that was a thing. It was just the one I left behind. And we had 2 children together. Both of those children, I started paying child support. But of course, that's not a fatherly thing. That's just help, right? Help in a way that gets them a roof over their head, food, things like that. The fatherly help is me being there or trying to. She was young. I was also young, but she was younger. And though those days, someone who was younger and didn't take care of their family was kind of looked at differently, once I had my daughter, I had to open my heart. And once I opened my heart, everything that she was doing, I basically said, okay, then she wasn't ready for what I'm ready for. I was finding my ways to try to figure out, how do I move on? But our relationship didn't work. I know it didn't. I know there was no way of trying. We had so many different situations that people would have kind of called it ratchet, kind of ghetto, kind of, you know how Americans talk. We just downplay everything, right? And so I focused more on my relationship with my children. We had situations where I wouldn't see the children for months. That wasn't because of me. Sometimes it was, but work was for the country, and they were gone. They were nowhere. 500-600 miles. Somebody convert that in kilometers. I don't know how to do it. And basically, it would take about 8 to 12 hours one way driving to get to them. And I would have them for weekends, sometimes long school breaks, which here last about 3 to like 10 days. So most of the time, my children would know the back of my head versus the front of my heart. And the reason is because we would spend most of the time driving. So while I'm here and trying to be that great dad, I also realized that my kids cannot just come and we go to the amusement park and we go here and we go there, and I had to stop that. 1, it became expensive, and 2, if that's all I was known for, then you really didn't get to know me. So my children, I was asked them favorite colors, best friends' names, anything that I can get out of them, because within the gap, and I've always called it a gap, I want to hear from them. And that was because of the relationship that I had with their mom. Their mom did not want a relationship with me, even if it meant co-parenting, as they call it these days. So I would try to look at their school calendars, try to, figure out if I'm going to be around, how long will I be around, all the stuff. My son was 12 years old once. He had a phone. he had, and I think this was the days where if your phone was off, you remember the minutes, right? If your phone was off, that you can actually go on their web browser and pay your bill online. And I came across something while I was just trying to go into their page where my son was looking at something he shouldn't be looking at. Fill in the blank. I kind of gave him his phone back because, again, this phone is not mine. This phone was not given from me to him. And I said, well, if this is why you want the phone, I'm going to give you your phone back because you shouldn't be looking at this stuff, right? And not only that, I was just basically trying to do a favor because I wanted him to realize that if anything he needed, he can ask me for. And I kind of looked at him a little bit different, not too much because I was a young boy too, and I get it. So just kept on with the days. 2 years later, we had a big summer coming up. Everyone was planning. We were doing a bunch of things. And then my son, remember there's two of them. My son, the oldest one, decided it was best if he did not come with me that summer. He's 14. And later to come to find out that it was someone he had basically fell in love with or infatuated, as one of my Spaniard friends are in the chat right now saying hi. So, and they're from the UK. I just threw that in there. But anyways, so they chose the girl, and there's a little bit in me that wanted to say, okay, I've been that age before, but also I can't. 10 years ago, we were able to communicate through every way possible. Technology was an all-time high. So if he needed the time to talk to her, FaceTime, everything, we had that kind of communication. So he took his time away from his dad. But I understand as teens, no one really wants to chill with their parents. The problem ended up I didn't know a lot of what was going on in his life, but it started expanding to the other family. So no longer that I was the victim of what he was doing, other people were. So he found he found a way. He realized what was going on. He called me about 4 to 8 months and apologized because he realized that he was not only affecting me, who was distant, but his mom, which was close. And I said, "Oh, okay, that's good. Just know that a lot of people love you, and that there's room for everybody. Okay, especially if you feel okay, especially if you're happy. There's no room for people who don't make you happy. Sorry, bro. Like, I'm not gonna." Years went on. We had a little bit of more short visits. He started getting older. Mom started saying no, claiming that the kid did not want to visit anymore. I see him in his high school graduation. My son's becoming a man. And I was there. And I saw him. And I saw him cross. I realized he was popular. I realized he wasn't an honor student because you can always tell by the robe. And now he's off to adulthood. And he's in adulthood and the communication has stopped. As if the high school graduation was it. I still had the daughter. The daughter was a different kind of machine there because we were so filtered. That's why through the time frame, you hardly hear me talk of her. But we've found a way to communicate through each other, to each other, through video games and through messaging apps because we miss each other. We found a way, though the filters were there through her mom. I missed my daughter's graduation because of the filter with the mom. And it sucked. And the kid's grandmother, which is still alive, would always update me. I said, I know what's going on. Trust me, everybody has eyes. Here's your daughter at prom. Here's your daughter at whatever. And I'm sorry, it's still going on like this. I said, yeah. Thank you so much for being that that sideline person for me, right? Well, it's been about 4 years. And I finally saw my son at 22. And I saw him at a different situation. I saw him at one of my ex-girlfriend's house where we have a mutual position. You're the big brother, I'm the dad of one of these kids. And the first thing that my son told me while I saw him online, we're all going up there for a play, was, I didn't think you were coming. And I don't know why the first thing that I thought of was, I was always coming. I was always there. And now it's different because your brother's mom is not crazy, right? Your brother's mom is not filtering. But I didn't say all that. I just kind of took it in and I said, after all these years, you want to tell me I'm not showing up. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just get over it, right? Because that's what we got to do. Is our kids, they don't know any better, right? That's what people say. Well, I started noticing that he wanted to start his own YouTube channel. I said, okay, do your thing. If anybody knows about streaming, it's your dad, right? This should be the calling that I've always had. We share something. And every YouTube live, he never mentions me. I'm an absolute absentee in his life. My children that are of age, of understanding, and there is an age for that. Sometimes they get it young. Sometimes it takes forever. They are also starting to get upset. Now, I'm not the type to try to make my kids choose the feelings, right? I'm not dictating what they want to be, who they want to love. Just trying to show them, hey, dad has feelings too. I'm just not out here fixing a light, right? I'm just not talking crap online. Dad is upset. And I'm upset because now I feel like I'm angry at my son. I'm angry at my son because of all those times, the reason that I stood so long in the military. And I'm sure you came around so many people, and the military, it's a almost like automatic check. That's one. And two, the benefits are beyond belief. And I was fortunate enough to go through all that, go to places, come back one piece. Some people don't. But I stood there for them because there is no passion staying in there. People are yelling at you all day. They're expecting 130% of your attention. And I stood in. It got easy after a little bit. But I really had the only intention is get these kids out of high school. Let them find their own financial freedoms. Have them have health benefits. Because there was no other motivation I had. It was, land of the free. Do you know where I'm from? There is no land of the free right now. It is ridiculous. But I stood there for him. Did I ever tally that up to him? No. Did I ever sit there and tell him all the sacrifices I did? No. I asked one of my kids something. He said, Dad, I don't know, man. God forbid something happens to you and he comes and tries to pay respects. I would probably tell him to leave. And the reason I would tell him to leave is because your sadness comes from him. Doc, whatever you want to call yourself, how do I move on? How do I forgive? How do I do this? Because this comes out of my mouth so much that I'm sure people are tired of hearing it out of me. What do I do?
Book some sessions. Yeah.
No!
Seriously, the thing, what you've just described is really complex because there's your relationship with him and your expectations that he's not fulfilling. You're also going to have some self-judgment. So there's also a bit of self-forgiveness that needs to happen. And then there's your ex who was filtering. So you're going to have some resentment of her. And then you can also see that your other son is now carrying secondhand resentment on your behalf, so that if his brother wants to come and pay respects to his dad, that he will carry resentment. And you can see how we fracture families. And when I said at the definition, for what you did or didn't do, most of this is about what didn't get done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's he had expectations that dad should whatever. You have expectations my son should whatever. Your other son, my brother should whatever. And it's usually all of the shoulds as well, and our expectations. Like we have a script of what we expect other people to do, and most of the time other people are not reading that script. They've got their own, and then there's no connection between them, so we're eternally disappointed by other people and their behavior. So it's really tricky. So what you've got is a very complex situation. I will tell you though, recently I was working with a friend who was separated from his first partner, and his son, so he's in the UK, and his son got taken back to America where his mother was originally from. And so we spent probably about 2 hours doing a session on his ex-partner. But he's just gone out there, and he recently said to me, things are easier with my ex, and I'm sure that's due to the work that we did. So there's hope.
All right, I'll start booking. Big shout out to everybody. Listen, let me tell you, I have a really great group of friends, right? And sometimes they're a little too great. Like they take advantage of situations. And when you answered, book some sessions, that whole chat room went crazy. I love the answer. Where do I sign up? Anyways, I appreciate that. I'll definitely email you as we discussed. And we'll take one more break here because I want to get into what's coming of you. And I want to get into that song you talked about, Spider, and, and things like that. So if you guys want, please pay attention, barbarajhunt.com for more information after this. Here is Spider by Barbara J. Hunt on QSJ Radio.
She was a spider in the corner, trapped and terrified against the wall, bewildered by cruelty, broken, beaten, bleeding in
You can stream Spider all over the place. Definitely something, if you guys didn't recall earlier, Spider was inspired song by someone else's story that there was just no way, no how, or maybe she did a really great job and was able to, accomplish and conquer all those things. So make sure you guys go check that out. Okay, make sure you guys go do that right after the show. Looking ahead, what are some projects or goals? I know you talked about that visual that you got coming up for one of your songs. I know that you're excited about that. Or any new books or courses? And of course, we're talking about music. So any more music on the pipeline?
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of, I've recorded 9 songs, so it's a 9-song album, and this one will be the 3rd one. And I am really excited about it because it's got like this really quirky little video that's going to come with it. And also it's really positive. It's called All I Think About, and it's just an explosion of love. So it's a real kind of like positive, like upbeat, sweet, kind of sweethearted song. So I'm actually really excited about that one. And then the rest will come out through the year. I took advice about it's best to release things, like periodically to spread it out rather than just like, here's the album and then everyone goes off and does something else afterwards. So, yeah. And then I am actually working on 2 other books. So I'm working on Self-Forgiveness Made Easy because although I do write about self-forgiveness in the first book, I just felt it's always the thing that people ask me, like, well, what about self-forgiveness? And people say things like, well, of course, you have to forgive yourself first before you can forgive anyone else. And I'm like, no, you don't. You start anywhere. Start wherever is easiest. Sometimes we find it really hard to forgive ourselves. Other times we forgive ourselves and maybe need to hold ourselves to more accountability. So it's subtle ground. And then the other book that I'm working on is it's called Everyday Superpowers, and it's 5 essential practices for lifelong mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And of course, one of those 5 is forgiveness, but there's another 4 practices because I really like the idea of having tools because life is so difficult, and just the what you described is. I can imagine there must be millions of other human beings in exactly that position, where there's some, separated parents, and then there's, one child has really had difficulty staying connected, or there's resentment built up between the, parents, and co-parenting is hard. I always used to say when I broke up with my partner, the first 7 years are the worst. I was kind of like being slightly tongue-in-cheek, but now he's mixing my album for me, so it's all as good.
Yo, shout out to the ex.
Shout out to the forgiveness. I mean, that's the truth of it. Yeah, I tell this.
It cannot be that powerful. Oh my God.
It is that powerful. I tell this story in my book about there was a woman locally, and she was like a friend of a friend, and my other friends were like, you get on so well. And so we used to go to the same dance class. And one time I said, do you want a lift share? And she was like, no, thank you. I prefer to travel on my own. And I was like, go on then. And then, so I kind of felt like I was carrying a bit of resentment, and I thought, no, okay, I need to just like clear the field. I don't want to carry resentment against anybody. So I did my forgiveness work. And then the next couple of days later, I went into a store where she was, and I was in a hurry. So can I just quickly rush in? And she was like, go on then. And I just thought, just done my forgiveness work on you. And so I did more forgiveness work.
Listen, I don't, maybe it's the culture. But some people do not deserve it.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. So I did my work again because that's my personal decision that I do not want to carry ill will against any other human being. And then a little while later, I met her in the same store, and she was pregnant and she was really unwell. She had a lot of morning sickness, and so I said, "Do you want to?" Because I do other process work with people. I said, "Would you want me to do a process with you?" And she said, "Yeah." And so we started doing process swaps together. And she's one of my best friends now. And she's a gift of forgiveness, because if I hadn't got off my shit the first
No,
first
it's
time,
fine.
that's an example of using everyday forgiveness. It was a little thing. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't even, like your thing, which is a family thing that's significant. It was like just a little niggle. And you can, that's why I mean about having forgiveness as a practice, because it means you can clear the field on those short, like little things that aren't even that much big of a deal. But then it gives you these blessings, like and in fact, she came over for my birthday just recently and was literally just tearing up going, I can't believe, I'm so grateful that you're in my life. And, that was because of forgiveness. And we've done forgiveness work together over many years since then. So yeah, it's brilliant.
Master of forgiveness. Shout out to you. Okay. Because I don't know. I will give it a try. All right. Yeah. I will give it a try and I will pursue, because I do believe that there is a lot of things in my life, not only with that one situation, that maybe can help with these things. Now, let's go back to these music part, because music also loves collaborations. Are there any collaborations or new directions that you're exploring that might surprise your audience?
Well, in fact, on this album, I don't know if you picked out the cello on Spider, and in fact on Wake Up As One, on most of the album, I have the great joy of collaborating with Hannah Moole from the Moulettes. They're a UK-based band, and they tour with the Levelers, and they're local and they're friends of mine. And so it was such a joy to have just this exquisite cello on this album. And also Hannah is a really good vocal arranger. And so she did a lot of the vocal arranging and the backing vocals. And sometimes we do them together and sometimes she does them. So Hannah Moole from the Moulettes is, And also her partner, Ollie, who's a really fine percussionist. He's the engineer. And so I just felt incredibly blessed. I don't know if you've heard, but they say always work with musicians who are better than you are. And so I felt really grateful to be working with these musicians. And also a shout out to my double bass player, Pete Maxfield, because he's really cool. He's a proper kind of jazzer, but I love stand-up double bass. It's just a really nice sound. So, yeah.
Shout out we got shout out of Barbara. Shout out. I know you say that a lot. It's all good. Shout out to Barbara. So, let me go a little bit back into this. The world seems to be crumbling, right? I don't want to leave my kids with this. I can't change it, but a lot of people can together, right? Big word there. In a world that seems incredibly divided, increasing every day, how can the practice of forgiveness be a tool for collective healing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you have to start where you are. I mean, I can't do anything about the world. I can take care of what's in my own heart. And did you ever play, there's a game called Stuck in the Mud. Did you ever play that when you were a kid?
Mud. Probably.
Where you stand with your legs apart and your arms out, and then somebody's and if you get tagged, you get stuck in the mud. And then the other people who are free, they run through your legs, and then you're free. So I feel like forgiveness is a bit like that. It's like it helps to set individual hearts free. And when you're free and you're not carrying your resentment, you're free to then put that energy into creating a world that works for everyone. And, because if you think of it a bit like, like resentment is a bit like eating your own tail, or I love these, there's some really great quotes. My favorite one is carrying resentment is like setting yourself on fire and hoping the other person is bothered by the smoke.
Bro.
Right?
Bro.
Because they're not even, you're the fuel. You're the fuel that's been burning up the whole time. I'm the one waking up in the morning. I hate them. They're on my mind. I can't get over it. They should have been different. And they're just like living their lives and going shopping and having a coffee. And, it's you who's suffering. And as soon as you get that, you want to get free. You do not want to be taking that poison yourself. You want to get your heart free, because then you become what's called unfuckwithable, which other people do their stuff and you're Teflon.
Barbara Hunt is in the building, if you guys didn't know. Oh, man, big shout out to everybody listening. BarbaraHunt.com, BarbaraJHunt.com. Further more information if you guys want to reach out to them about so many other things. What's one book other than your own that deeply influenced your life?
The very first spiritual book that I ever read when I was 15, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Do you know that one? Richard Bach.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little book, classic, modern spiritual classic. And then, I love all the Conversations with God books and Power of Now and Course in Miracles, and I've read a lot of spiritual texts and stuff. And in fact, funnily enough, at the moment I'm reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. The record producer.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
It's a really good book about creativity. Really, really enjoying that, and about making art and how important it is that you make something that comes from your heart. That is, a gift that you give. It's good.
There's a few comments in the chat, and people are loving the fire extinguisher. They're just loving. They're just loving it. It is. I know this didn't come like that. If it did, it's amazing.
No, it was a gift. A friend's brother painted it for me.
Nice.
And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Spray the world.
Spray it.
Love and
Yeah.
peace. Yeah.
What was it like when you're not working? Where do you find peace or joy?
In nature, because I live in the
it.
countryside.
I love
it. So at the moment in England, there are bluebells in the woods, and it's just like literally carpets of blue. It's just exquisite.
You got to send me a pic. Send me a pic, please. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love hearing about other people's nature, because it's different around the world. I'm in suburbia in the Atlantic coast of America, and all we got is maple leaf. Like so exciting. But anyway.
But maple's beautiful in the autumn.
It is amazing. It definitely gets you into that Halloweenic file, prepare for the fall type of and winter. It gets cozy. It gets incredibly cozy. I got a question here. If our listeners could take away one thing from today's conversation, which they're going to take a lot, okay? But what would you want it to be?
Probably that your forgiveness is an act of amnesty for the whole of humanity. And when you forgive, it adds to peace on earth. So if you want there to be peace on earth, start with your own heart.
That's all the chat's been telling me. That's all the chat.
Thank you.
Oh my God. How do I forgive myself?
Yeah.
When you don't when you don't know what you did wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It takes about, I do 90-minute sessions.
I got you. I got time.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do it.
It's worth it. Yeah.
We'll do that.
Cool.
Barbara, thank you for joining us today, sharing not just your wisdom, but your heart. Your journey through forgiveness, healing, and creative expression reminds us that true transformation begins from within. For everyone listening, whether you're carrying something heavy or simply seeking a little bit more peace, remember, letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself to live fully. You can find more of Barbara's work, music, and teachings at BarbaraJHunt.com and all major streaming platforms. Until next time, Be kind to yourself, take a breath, and maybe forgive just a little bit more today. Thank you, Barbara.
Amen. Thank you.
Now I got to add you to the appointment list. Oh, thank you. And when the new music comes out, we'll definitely be on top of it. And if you're in a promotion with the album, give us a ring. You already got us.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And forgive my mixer here.
Yeah, it's done.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks. Take good care. Bye.
Bye.
She was a spider in the corner, trapped and terrified against the wall, bewildered by cruelty, broken, beaten, bleeding, innocent. Still her beauty undimmed, still her soul undamned, still